everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate all of your continued participation in our series of Zoom Iowa press conferences. We appreciate the 5 participants that we have joining us today. The order of operations will go as follows. We'll have brief introductory remarks from the governor, and then he will be able to take a question from everybody. I will go through our list of participants and call on everybody. When I call on you, if you could please unmute your mic, unmute yourself on your Zoom portal there, and then ask your question, and then remute so that the audio stays clean. All right, so we will now hear from Governor DeSantis.
Well, good to see everybody. We look forward to be back in Iowa very soon. We have completed 83 of the 99 county tour. We clearly are going to do 99. We probably could have finished it this month, but what I decided is I want to get the 99th closer to the caucus. So we may spread a little bit of it out, but we're definitely going to continue doing that and then start to hit some of the other areas that are more populated on a more regular basis. And we feel like we've got great momentum on the ground. We see like we believe we're moving in the right direction, and we're going to keep doing that. We just spent the day yesterday in New Hampshire, 7 events alongside Governor Chris Sununu, and we're kind of taking the same work ethic that we've shown in Iowa, and we're now bringing it to New Hampshire. So we'll be bopping back and forth between Iowa and New Hampshire over the next 3 months. And we think that this is that's the way you got to do it. I think that's what voters expect. And so we're going to continue doing that as we move forward. Also provide an update on what we've been able to do in Florida to help vis-a-vis the Hamas attacks on Israel. I think obviously I was in Iowa when this happened. I talked to some of you that Saturday, October 7th, and it was clear it was going to be an issue for my state just because I've got a lot of people that go back and forth. Turned out that people were not getting help from the State Department. They were not getting help from the American Embassy. And there were a lot of people that were in desperate need to get back to Florida or to the United States. So we scrambled. I did an executive order a few days later. We scrambled resources to be able to bring Americans back. So we're now close to, we're going to have done almost 700 people, mostly Floridians, but not all. The first flight, my wife and I met at Tampa Airport. There was 271 passengers, 91 children. And when you see the families coming off and the young children and even the pets coming off the plane, these are folks that had rockets exploding over their heads 36 hours earlier. So we were able to bring a lot of people to safety. And I think it just shows leadership when there's a void in Florida. I've stepped up, gotten the job done. And so we're proud that we've been able to have a hand in that and bring people to safety. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Governor. We'll start with Amanda Rooker from KCCI. Amanda, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question.
Great, and thank you, Governor, for making time for us this morning. Iowa's Governor, Kim Reynolds, just told reporters this morning that she's not ruling out making an endorsement in the 2024 race. Have you talked to her at all about her decision on making an endorsement?
Well, look, she, I think, would be a huge get. Obviously, I would love to have her support, formal support. I think it'd be very, very meaningful. I think what she's been able to do in Iowa has really been a model for how people should govern. You see it in the people moving from Minnesota and Illinois coming into Iowa because they see the leadership and they see the state's well run. And that's obvious for any time you spend any time there. And it's been obvious for me for a long time because the Iowans who visit Florida, when I see them in the winter, like Marco Island and Estero and Bonita Springs and all these places, they'll tell me how happy they are with Kim's leadership. And that's different from what I hear from the people that come down to Florida from Illinois and Minnesota and Wisconsin. So clearly, I think she could have a really significant impact. And I think any candidate running would be a fool not to want to have the support of Governor Reynolds.
Thank you. We'll move to Skylar Talal, KGAN.
Yeah, thank you for holding this call. I was just wondering, do you think with some of the other candidates now making Iowa a higher priority, do you think that this could have any impact, come caucus night?
Well, look, we've done Iowa the right way. We've done it the way candidates who have won Iowa in the past have done it. And Iowans want to see you. They want to see you ask for their support. They want to shake your hand. They want to be able to ask you questions. They do not like candidates who think they're entitled to the vote. They want a candidate that's going to come in and earn the vote. So we've done that. We were really the first one to lay an organization. And then, of course, my commitment to doing the full Grassley. So I think it's one thing to say you're going to shift some staff or whatnot in there, and that's fine. People can do what they want to do. But I'll be the only candidate to have done all 99 counties. And I think if you look at the support we've been able to generate, I talked to Iowans on the ground who are very familiar with the history of the Iowa caucuses, and they will tell me, they're like, Governor, you're ahead of where previous winners were in the last however many cycles. So just keep doing what you're doing. So I think we've got the right strategy. I think we've got the right message for Iowans, because I think Iowans ultimately, they want a conservative leader who's going to stand for their values and is going to be able to deliver results. And so just like I've done in Florida, like your Governor Kim Reynolds has done in Iowa, we need that in the next president of the United States. And I think that we're getting the support that we need. We're going to work very hard over these next 80 some odd days, of course, but I think we're going to continue to build the support that we need.
Thank you, Skylar. Moving to Aaron Murphy, the Gazette.
Thank you for this time, Governor. Appreciate it. I'm just curious for your perspective on what you and your campaign feel needs to happen on January 15th for you to remain, in consideration and in competition moving forward out of Iowa. Do you need to finish first in Iowa, or just close the gap that we see in polling right now? What is your view on what needs to happen on caucus night?
Well, that's more for political pundits to say. I mean, I can tell you, we're going to win Iowa. We're going to get it done. But as you know, there have been people that have won Iowa who didn't end up winning the nomination. There have been people that did not win who ended up. So what you have to do is you have to win a majority of the delegates, and you have to chart a path to do that. We feel that that Iowa is a great place to start the campaign. I'm glad it's the first contest. I'm glad New Hampshire is the first primary. I think the voters in those two states are discerning. I think more and more are starting to pay close attention, and I think that you have the vast majority of the voters who are going to caucus in Iowa are going to want a fresh candidate. And so I think we're going to be the one that's going to be able to harness that support and get the job done on caucus night.
Thank you, Aaron. Katie Aiken with the Des Moines Register.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for the time. I was hoping to ask about the racketeering case against Donald Trump in Georgia. Just this week, several of his allies have taken plea deals in that case. What does the momentum in that particular indictment, what do you think that means for Donald Trump's candidacy, and what does it mean for the 2024 race more broadly?
Well, look, in terms of the specifics of these things, I'm not as well read up on some of it. I mean, I think the idea of bringing a RICO case, they have Mark Meadows named in this, who I know Mark. They don't even accuse him of committing a crime. They just say he did certain things or somehow part of RICO. So I think that there's a lot of questions there. But I have said repeatedly, and I continue to maintain, the country wants a new direction. The majority of the public have lost faith in Joe Biden's ability to lead. Vast majorities of the public believe that he's past his prime and is not up to doing the job in a second term. So it's incumbent upon us as Republicans to make that case about Biden's failures, but then also offer a positive vision of how you reverse the decline of this country. How do we bring America back? And I'm the candidate that can do that. And if that's what the election is focused on, then we're going to win not just the White House, we'll win the House by a bigger majority, we'll recapture the U.S. Senate majority, and we'll win up and down the ballot in these state legislative races, which are really, really important, as people in Iowa have known with all the good work your legislature's done. On the other hand, if the election is a referendum about all things Trump, if it's focusing on, documents in Mar-a-Lago, if it's focusing on January 6th, if it's focusing on all those things, well, then Biden's just going to be hanging out in the basement again. You're going to end up energizing a lot of Democrats to want to come out and vote against Trump. And then we end up in a situation where the Democrats, like they were able to do in 22 and in 2018 and in some of these years, 2020, they're then going to be able to have the upper hand. And so I think it's a question about how do you want the election framed? If the election's framed about the issues the American people care about, we will win. If the election's framed about all these other issues from the past, that is absolutely going to help Democrats. I don't think there's any question about it. They wouldn't be doing all these cases if they didn't think that it would help them ultimately win the election.
And we have OK Henderson. She submitted a question here in the chat box. The question is as follows. In your view, what is the value of the Miami debate and what is the opportunity there, especially if there are a more limited number of participants and as expected, Trump does not participate? Would you skip this or other debates?
I'm going to show up to debates. I think that's part of the process. I think people want to hear from you. I think it gives you an opportunity to articulate why are you the best person to be the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump should show up to these debates. He's been totally missing in action. He swoops in to Iowa, then he leaves. He was in New Hampshire for a short time, then he leaves. He's always on the teleprompter now. That's kind of something that he's can't get off of. When he does go off script, he ends up saying things like he told people in New Hampshire they didn't need to worry about voting, that he already had enough votes or something, which is very odd to do. Of course, he said things in Iowa. He's been on interviews where he's done things like attack Bibi Netanyahu. So he, of course, attacked pro-lifers and attacked pro-life protections as being somehow a terrible thing. So you see that time and time again. So I think he owes it to the voters to show up. Remember, October of 2020, that first debate was Biden. Biden beat him in that debate. And that was really incredible that he allowed that to happen. But people remember that. I think that had a real significant impact in the election. And we saw in Florida, Trump's numbers started to decline after that. So he's got to show that he can do this. I think it's a different guy in 23 than he was in 2016. I think he was energetic, freewheeling back then. I think it was really about America first. Now I think he's on the teleprompter. Most of the stuff he's talking about is about himself and his issues. And that's not the inspiring message that's going to be able to win the day with the American people. But look, I think he should debate. And I'm willing to allow him to bring his teleprompter to the debate if that's what he wants to do. And we will just do it like that. But he should be on that stage in Miami in subsequent debates. I will be there. We can argue about how these debates have been run. I would run them differently, but the reality is I'm going to be there delivering my message. If I have an opportunity to do it, to speak directly to the American people, we're going to do it. So we look forward to being down in Miami on November 8th. And here's another thing. Iowa should have one of these debates. Look, I love Florida. I love Miami's doing great. We're proud to host it. But there should be a debate in either December or early January in Iowa. Then there should be a debate after the Iowa caucus, but before the New Hampshire primary in New Hampshire. And I don't know why we haven't had any of these debates in the two early states. So I'm a big supporter of getting either the December or an early January debate in Iowa. I think that'd be very important. I think obviously we'll still cover the whole host of issues, but you may have some Iowa-specific things that some of the Iowans care about. And that's really what the RNC should be doing. So you can put me in favor of bringing the next RNC debate or one of the ones between now and the Iowa caucus to the state of Iowa. I think it'd be good for the process.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining, and we will be hosting more of these very soon. We appreciate your participation, and we'll be reaching out again shortly.